All right. Happy Monday, everybody. We have 27 people on the call, which is amazing. I'm Sunny. I live in Hyco, Texas, and I was diagnosed 7 years ago. We kind of had, so 2 years ago, we did a book club. And then this year, knowing that we wanted to change it up, we decided to go with a movie club, and then I pitched it to Carol, who turned it into a whole thing. So I'm so thankful that you guys are all here, and I'm so very excited to hear your thoughts and takeaways from Vice Die Trying. We have Angelina and Beth on the call from the documentary with us. So feel free to put any questions that come up real time in the chat, and we'll try to get them worked in. Angelina and Beth have both prepared some questions ahead of time. So we'll try to kind of keep it as conversational as possible. We just ask that everyone is respectful. This is intended to be a collaborative and supportive conversation. And just a reminder, we cannot answer any questions about specific trials or therapies. So with that, I would like to introduce you to Angelina Panos.
Sunny for including my work in the Fight ALS Film Festival. I'm also very excited that Beth Hebron is able to join us tonight.
Sorry, I don't know what is doing. All right.
Pretty good to me.
Hello, everyone. I'd first like to thank you all for taking the time to watch my documentary. And I'd like to thank Sunny for including my work in the Fight ALS Film Festival. I'm also very excited that Beth Hebron is able to join us tonight. I'm truly honored that 6 years after airing, this film still speaks to so many people, but at the same time, I'm saddened that it's still so relevant and not much progress has been made. With that said, let's dive into your questions.
Sunny and Angelina, were any questions emailed in or anything ahead of time? Yeah, okay.
Yes, so we had quite a few questions.
What year
Oh, here we go. Angelina's ahead of us.
filmed the film in the second half of 2015, and it aired in June 2016. At this time, there are no plans for a follow-up film.
Give me a second. Take off a question to question.
One of the questions we had come in was there going to be a follow-up documentary?
Are you healing? I've been on a steady but slow decline since my diagnosis in 2014. I rely on a feeding tube to get most of my meals and on a BiPAP at night to help me breathe. I've completely lost use in both of my arms, and my legs can hold me up, but I can't walk. It's very tiring to speak, hence why I'm typing and not speaking. Oh, you stay in touch with pals from film? I check in with the people in the film from time to time. I'll let Beth update you on her life, but I have a few updates on others in the film. I'm glad to report that Matt Bellina seems to be doing well and has been in stable condition for a while. He says that he's still able to eat solid food and breathe without using a BiPAP. While his arms are not very useful, his legs are strong enough to stand but not walk. His voice has declined, so he needs to repeat himself, but his spirit is stronger than ever. I wasn't able to get in touch with Wiesem in time, but the last time we spoke, he was in very good spirits and extremely hopeful that we're closer to a cure than ever. On a sad note, I'm sorry to report that Eric Valor passed away due to complications related to ALS. Eric was such a fierce and powerful voice in ALS advocacy, and I miss his insights, cutting wit, and contributions to ALS advocacy.
You're here.
Beth, do you want to introduce yourself?
اللي بيدوب كمان ولا خلاص كده خلاص
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Beth's having some trouble, so maybe we can fill a little time while you get set up. Beth, if you want to just, when you're ready, type any letter, one letter into the chat, we'll see that it's you so that you don't have to go to too much effort and we'll cut back to you. Angelina, do you want to keep going with something or would you like to take some fresh questions?
Okay, Rowan.
Great.
How did the stem cells help Wiesem? Wiesem did not notice a difference in his disease progression after his stem cell treatment in Lebanon, which was in very early experimental stages at the time. I don't have any other information on the treatment or if it's still even offered.
Oh, Beth typed in the chat, I think.
Besides the countless muscle relaxers, Nudexta, and gabapentin, I have a very specific diet of cannabis that really helps me on a day-to-day basis. I take THCA, CBD, and THC together in a 1:1:1 ratio. I find that this specific combination really helps stimulate the motor nerves and aids my working muscles to be at their best. also found that an 8-to-1 ratio of CBD, THC has the same effect on the motor nerves if THCA isn't readily available. Besides cannabis, I rely on psychedelics like LSD and psilocybin mushrooms to help with depression and that sense of impending doom.
Beth, do you want to take it away?
I thought she typed something new, but she didn't yet. So Beth, we'll keep going for another minute or two while you get ready. Actually, for until whenever you're ready, not a minute or two. No pressure, Beth. Well, Angelina, you certainly just brought up a lot of good little topics for subtopics for conversation in that last one. And thank you for when you got on the town hall and helped, an awful lot of people in the community understand how different people have used miracle marijuana across the time. And Dan, oops, let me find it. Dan McIntyre had a question for you too, Angelina, sorry. Your film dealt with FDA's posture on expanded access. Have you seen meaningful movement in that regard? For instance, the 2019 guidance. That may take a minute for you to prepare unless you want to speak to it.
Yeah, give me a minute.
Sure.
I'll address that in the end. But for now,
How do you not give up after diagnosis? ALS is not an easy diagnosis to accept. I chased lots of clinical trials and experimental treatments in the beginning before I accepted that my life would change and ultimately look like something different than what I had gotten used to. My life now is valuable in different ways. I have a richer relationship with my parents who are my primary caregivers. I'm more patient and less selfish, and I've learned to live in the moment and for today instead of worrying about my future. I'm also of the mindset that anything is possible. If I was diagnosed with ALS at 29, maybe I'll get my second act when I'm cured at 60, at which point I'll promptly move to a beach shack and live my best life a la Grace and Frankie.
Three cheers for that.
I love Grace and Frankie, by the way. Everyone should watch that show. It's so good.
I'll join you. Carol dropped the link.
How do you live a normal life? I've had to amend my meaning of normal to include having someone else do everything for me, from feeding me to wiping my ass. But once I got past that minuscule, ever so small detail, I realized that I could still enjoy many things, from attending family gatherings to traveling to the edge of the earth to trek Patagonia in a special wheelchair. Technology has also played a big role in maintaining my sanity. I can surf the internet, control the lighting and heating in my room, and have full conversations just by using my eyes. People with disabilities don't just sit at home and stare at a wall. We lead interesting, meaningful, and valuable lives. What has life been like since Doc aired? My life has been nice and quiet. I often hear from people who have watched the doc, and that's really rewarding to know that it's still impactful to people living with ALS and random strangers. Is there anything you would have added to the doc? I'm very happy with how the doc turned out, but of course we couldn't include everything in there, like my personal battle to get an experimental treatment called GM6 outside of a clinical trial. This was before Right to Try passed, and any experimental treatments were through the FDA program Compassionate Use. After the FDA granted me permission to get GM6, I had to get an IRB, which is an outside review board, to also grant me permission. It was a nightmare, because after the first IRB denied my request, my doctor became really uncomfortable with the process and lost faith in the treatment. I did eventually get the treatment, but it was 3 months after the FDA approved my compassionate use application, and the process was such a headache that my doctor didn't want to go through with it again. I did eventually get the treatment, but it was 3 months after the FDA approved my compassionate use application, and the process was such a headache that my doctor didn't want to go through with it again. If you could tell your doc self any advice, what would it be? I would tell my doc self to rest and not push myself so hard, because traveling to film at each location and long days really took a toll on my body. I also wish that I kept my interview with Janet Woodcock after my interview with Andrew Lowe, so I could have pressed her more on lowering the approval threshold for ALS and other devastating diseases. What are some of your biggest accomplishments since the doc? Professionally, I haven't done anything. I've just been enjoying life and traveling. I learned to define my life by more than what I publish, which feels like an accomplishment all on its own.
We've got lots of praise coming in the chat. She says she loves it.
Are we closer to a cure? I personally don't think we're close to a cure, definitely not with the current approval process that requires the same level of efficacy for ALS medicine as acne medicine. This deters a lot of biotech companies from entering the race for a cure. I was on a call with the FDA where Janet Woodcock actually said they have to answer to third-party payers, i.e. insurance companies, which doesn't seem like a patient-focused mentality. If a treatment shows a sliver of efficacy, it should be approved, and that will attract many new investments in ALS and ultimately lead to a cure. What are current treatment options? Radicava and Riluzole are the only 2 approved treatments for ALS. Radicava can extend life expectancy by 6 months and Riluzole extends life by 3 to 6 months. There isn't a viable treatment for ALS to this day. What causes ALS to progress faster? For me, it was head injuries and physical injuries. My body never healed properly after various falls, and I lost certain abilities after each one. What clinical trials are ongoing that you think may be promising? I am not up to date on all the clinical trials. Maybe someone else can take this question. What is something most people don't know about ALS, but you would like the public to know more about? They say ALS is rare, it isn't. They say ALS is painless, it isn't. What are the most supportive advocacy groups available to support people with ALS? I love the work that I Am ALS is doing. Its advocacy efforts will be pivotal to curing ALS. I also love Team Gleason and how they help patients live life to the fullest with ALS. And for research, ALS TDI and Project ALS are really making a lot of headway.
I have best answers. I can put them in my archives if you give me a minute.
So some of the questions that came in were kind of general to ALS, some were specific to Angelina. I appreciate you answering them anyway. And looks like Erin said she's happy to add in about the ASO trials for genetic forms.
Yeah, I totally can. I mean, so there's a question about sorry, I'm laying down, about different trials. I mean, I can speak for 3 I know that were for genetic forms. I am in one of them. Full disclosure, for FUS ALS. There was a paper actually published by Dr. Neil Schneider that it's doing really well and showing great efficacy on lowering FUS levels. So it's very promising. The C9 ASO, unfortunately, the trial was halted, which is another, so an ASO is an antisense oligonucleotide. I'll spare you the details of that, but there's also one for SOD1, the tofersen trial, which is ongoing. So those are, I guess there were 3, now there's 2 that are proving efficacious. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, I've been on it for 2 years. And my family, they would have lasted maybe a year and a half, and I'm nearly 3 years out. So I believe it's working, but it's not a paid, ad by Iona. So I know those 3 trials are happening and are showing, or 2 trials, and are showing some efficacy in slowing and definitely potentially stopping the progression.
So I'll jump in here too on that topic. Thank you, Erin. That was awesome. For sporadic ALS and in other genetic mutations, ALS TDI has a clinical trial database. If you could put that in the chat. IMALS has a wonderful one that a couple of the badass women who are on this Zoom tonight, a la Sandy Morris and Nadia Sethi, and maybe somebody else here that I have missed, have worked on the dashboard that is on the IMALS page. And I put my email in the chat, and Nadia, if you would put yours in too, if anybody wants to reach out to either one of us to talk about currently enrolling clinical trials, we're always happy to do that and to help you, find what's out there.
I have both answers whenever you guys are ready. All right. Here are my responses.
How is Beth doing? Did she get a trachea? I am doing well, all things considered. Since the documentary aired, here are my main changes. 1. I'm now fully reliant on my parents and caregiver to help me with all my everyday tasks, such as hygiene needs, taking medicine, getting out of bed and into my power chair, etc. 2. I am mostly non-ambulatory and only walk with assistance to and from my wheelchair or the bathroom. 3. I had my feeding tube installed to help subsidize my nutrition when I'm too tired to eat. I also have an all-liquid diet with the exception of some soft textured foods. 4. I no longer use my phone to communicate and use my eye gaze to send emails, text, watch TV, or listen to music. But most importantly, I use it now to drive my power chair when I go out. 4. I no longer travel on public transit or attend crowded events. This is because I have been hospitalized for neurostomach viruses and the flu due to large gatherings. I also find myself experiencing high amounts of pain if I sit upright for too long. 5. I thankfully am not on a trach. I use my BiPAP a few hours a day to exercise my lungs in conjunction with a cough assist and suction to keep infection out. Are we closer to a cure? I would say yes, we understand way more about both the causes and how to treat ALS than we did 8 years ago. We now know the disease is heterogeneous in presentation, meaning every patient has a unique genetic mutation causing the disease, and therefore a cocktail approach is most effective in medicating the specific mutations in the patient. Which is why advancing the way we test drugs in this sector is vital. There is no and will never be a one-size-fits-all medication. What treatments are working? In 2018, we discovered a new genetic mutation we believe to be a main contributing factor in my diagnosis. We found UNC13A. It would be an overexpression of glutamate and underexpression of GABA. Both contribute to exotoxicity. What we have found is that by using drugs that bring my levels of both back toward normal, there has been a very positive effect. Not yet improving or curative, but certainly positive in terms of significant progression slowdown. Our hope is that using drugs currently approved but off-label to further regulate my levels of glutamate and GABA to alleviate the exotoxicity and give me relief. The drugs most effective in this effort are riluzole, nudexta, gabapentin, baclofen, and medical marijuana. I also have plans to start AMX0035 as part of the FDA's Expanded Access Program. The drug is supposed to reduce neural death by blockading some of the neural pathways, improving muscle strength. How do you live a normal life? Well, to be frank, you simply don't live a normal life with ALS, because even the smallest task requires the maximum effort, even if it's just getting out of bed for the day. But you can still live a full life with the help of others. All it takes is the ability to reframe your expectations and a willingness to commit to a schedule with your caregiver. For instance, plan get-togethers or activities in advance and pack any essentials and put your clothes out the day before to cut down on tasks the day of. I even photographed all my clothes so I can text my outfit to my caregiver. How do you not give up after diagnosis? Find activities that truly spark joy. I love streaming TV, listening to music, group chats with my girlfriends, or hanging with my family. I truly find happiness now in the little things, a new scented candle, or cuddling with my dog on the patio on a warm day. Any day I'm still vertical is a win in my book. What causes ALS to progress faster? Lack of mobility. If you don't use the muscles you have, the faster they will atrophy. Example, several years ago I fell and broke my shoulder. Ever since I have lost the use of that arm. I recommend occupational and physical therapy to prevent this. Pilates and assistive stretching are also helpful. Stress. The effects anxiety and depression have on ALS are immediate and powerful. They cause fasciculations and stiffness, which hasten progression. What clinical trials are ongoing that you think may be promising? I don't currently follow the clinical trials because I no longer qualify due to the FDA requirements that patients not be more than 2 to 3 years post-diagnosis. What is something most people don't know about ALS, but you would like the public to know more about? It's really difficult to feel included in conversations because people either can't understand my voice or if I use my eye gaze, by the time I have typed something, the conversation has moved on.
Thank
If you're
you.
someone who has trouble communicating, give time for them to respond.
Case in point.
Well said.
Thank you for doing that. And thank you, Beth, for your answers. Question I had while we were talking about and having difficulties with eye gaze. Can you guys let us know in the chat if you're using eye gaze? So we can see how many people on the call are using this technology currently. I can count 6 or 7, but I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody, if you're comfortable. And I had asked Beth how and what testing she did to find the UNC 13A. She did genome sequence at material.
It's a bunch of eye gazes.
Really cool.
You know, one thing I just want to comment on, Angelina and Beth. Rewatching the piece tonight and remembering back then, I remember, Beth, when you were diagnosed and we reached out about Cosmopolitan magazine. I remember sitting at dinner and when you guys met for the first time, somewhere near your dad's office, Beth, in the 30s. And Angelina, you were going to be going home for the first time to have a conversation, and that made me go back to my hotel room and almost throw up. There I go, Kate, get the dog ready. Kate's dog barks when I cry. But I will tell you this, I'm going to be honest. I didn't envision the two of you being as unbelievably positive as you are at this stage of your ALS journey. And I am fucking blown away and impressed. I think it's really cool because I know both of you well enough to know that you're not going to give us fake answers. So the way you answered those questions where Beth, you were finding joy in the little things, and Angelina, you're grateful to your parents, and there are things that make you happy. That makes me wicked happy, as we Bostonians say, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always easy, but I think I'm more positive than not.
Would you have expected yourself to be as positive at this stage? Back early in, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of cool. That's why people with ALS are better people than the rest of us. 50 million reasons, but that's yet another one.
Stephen, you had put Angelina's answers was well said. Do you want to comment on which response that was?
Oh, sure. I think I commented on, I think it was Angelina's comment that people with disabilities, still live meaningful lives. We don't just sit at home staring at the wall, not going out or not being active in your passions. So I really thought that was a very good point. And people who don't have disabilities just take their abilities for granted, and they don't understand the fight that we have to go through in order to live a meaningful life. And I think that fight really kind of just empowers us to be good people. So that was my comment.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure.
Definitely feeling dizzy on her comments. But she loves and agrees with everything both of you said.
See, I told you guys are nicer than everybody else.
Two, five. Five, it looks like they're spoken up about being on eye gaze. And Michelle Debris says that Patrick's been trying to get on that gaze to use. He said he loves you all. Patrick is the is gonna be our co-host for the final movie in the movie festival, Trans Fatty Lives. And so that's definitely should be on your to watch list, but we're sorry he's not here tonight, but I can't wait for y'all to. Yeah, Michelle. Does anybody have any other questions? We're kind of coming up on the hour, so want to
Um,
make sure that we're respectful of your time.
I just have a comment. If anyone hasn't followed Angelina on Twitter, if you really want to just stay up to date with all of Angelina's thoughts, and I love all of your tweets, obviously. I've messaged you about them a bunch. I'm gonna put them in the chat so you can follow her. But if you want some real thoughts on living with ALS, she will tell you all of her thoughts. And we actually are sharing a quote from Angelina and Beth this month as part of Awareness Month, and Sunny and Kate. Wow, everybody's here. Yeah, I just love following your Twitter and just staying up to date with you. And I said to Angelina when we first hopped on today, I thought it was wild that we've never met even on Zoom, because I've just like talked to her online so much. I felt like I knew her, and having watched this when I first started at TDI, it just felt like I already knew you. And then getting on the Zoom, I was like, oh, we haven't actually hung out yet. So yeah, definitely follow her on Twitter if you haven't.
Thank you.
Tim, I love it. Do you see that, Michelle? Tim is saying, tell Patrick to come down the hall to his room where there's no connectivity issues. Both Patrick and Tim live at the ALS residence, the sailing residence in Chelsea, Massachusetts. And I can't wait to come meet you, Tim. Yeah, there's that too, Michelle.
I just wanted to thank you both for your candidness and the raw emotion that you shared. Angelina, I cried with you when you said we're cutting here because I don't want to cry on camera. And then Beth, when you were talking about the getting a trach and owing it to your loved ones to at least consider it, I just felt those were huge moments from both of you that took a lot of courage to share with the world. So thank you.
And I mean, the premise of the piece, Angelina, you know, if you guys remember kind of the opening shot segment, I don't know, I don't speak the vernacular well enough, but there were people after 2014 who were like, Ice Bucket Challenge is stupid. People are just doing it to get on social media. I don't care. That's okay. Just do it and let's raise the money. And I loved that that was the way you talked about it, because things that are popular, right, get, you know, hit down, kind of the essence of all bullying. And, you know, there's an ALS precision medicine program because of the Ice Bucket Challenge. There's drug that have moved forward, you know, it because of the Ice Bucket Challenge. There is, you know, having done some early work in Congress, I still back then had to say Lou Gehrig's disease. After the Ice Bucket Challenge, you don't have to say Lou Gehrig's disease anymore. You know, we don't have to be defensive of this anymore. So thank you for recognizing that that needed to be said. You know, I don't care if everybody did it for the right reasons or not. I'm delighted they did it.
Felina said, I actually haven't watched the doc since it aired. I'm scared I'll cry.
I get that. I
And
get
I said, I got in a huge fight about the IVs. One of grad school classes because someone said it was a worthless trend. And I was like, well, actually,
I got a huge fight on a discussion board and I still got 100 on the post, but somebody was like, it was a worthless trend, blah, 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 and went on this whole rant about it. And then I put them in their place with lots of facts about how much money it raised and all of the developments that came out of it and how people actually recognize what ALS is. And it was a whole thing. And my teacher was like, whoa, whoa, everybody calm down. And I was like, no, you calm down. It was a choice I made.
Or did you really just put a plant in there and said, hey, help me get an A here. I can really defend the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Yeah, for real. I did link back to a lot of links on the ALSTI website. I was like, here's a fact, here's a fact, here's a fact.
I think I had the same conversation with a coworker when I was living in Boston. He was like, this is stupid. I was like, don't even. And this is way before I was diagnosed, but my mom had passed away of it. Nobody even knew what it was. So for me, it was the awareness piece was amazing from that. But people, yeah.
Michelle said, Angelina, I rewatched it this Sunday and cried. And Patrick said that was sad but necessary.
That's
And
really
Tim
fun.
said, one of Pete Freight's cousins is friends with me on Facebook. I love that the Freight's family is still, Freight's family is still in the fight.
I think they just had the ALS awareness game that's BC and FSU every year. I think they just had that in Boston like last week because my mom was sending me a lot of news articles about it.
Yeah, at Fenway, and Lucy threw out the pitch.
So cute.
Any other hard-hitting topics we want to cover? Well, thank you, Angelina and Bess, for both being here, for being brave enough to share a story on the documentary, and for kicking ALS's ass all these years later and being here tonight with us. Thank you, everyone, for being on the call and for joining us. Stay tuned because we have another movie next week. We're going to meet on Monday, the 16th, same time, same place. And we're going to watch Hope on the Horizon. And it's going to be co-hosted with Donna York, whose father was nicknamed Hark. That's who Hark ALS Foundation was named after. So if you haven't watched it, get to watch it, and it's on YouTube. And thank you. We'll see you next week.
Angelina and Beth, thank you for all the work that I know had to have gone into preparing all of those answers. Thank you, Sunny.
Yes, thank you.